In recent times, Oklahoma has absolutely had some really good wide receivers, thinking of Sterling Shepard or even CD Lamb, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. You think of all of these great wide receivers, even going further back, Ryan Broyles. There's several that you can list off at the University of Oklahoma. And looking down the list, it shows how amazing Oklahoma has been, and not just getting big time wide receivers, but even producing big time wide receivers into the NFL. Many of those, really all of those that I just named, made it to the NFL and have done something at the NFL level. And what Oklahoma looks forward to next is to keep on getting those guys in. Obviously, 2024 was one of those seasons where you really have to reset with the Oklahoma Sooners and look at the list of injuries that they had with Nick Anderson, Andrel Anthony, even Deion Burks, Jaden Gibson, and now you go into 2025, and they're hoping to have some of these guys back. Of course, most of them being gone, but you think of Jaden Gibson, hoping to get him back, Deion Burks, hoping to have him back, and thinking of the big time capabilities that they have. Even Giovanni Gibson, another Gibson on Oklahoma's roster that you're hoping to have back this upcoming season. But what about after that? Because you don't want what happened in 2024 to ever happen to the Sooners again, especially if it's still this same coaching staff and they keep on moving forward and making strides. You don't want that to happen again. So obviously, it's building on to the upcoming classes, and you have to look at the 2026 class, for example, and what the Oklahoma Sooners bring to the table. And one name that they're looking at is Davian Groce. Davian is a guy that the Sooners absolutely have to hit on. They have to bring him in. This is one that you look at several past commitments that they were so close on getting, and they just couldn't bring the guys in. They just couldn't quite close the deal. And even on some that felt like they were a for sure thing. And it has to sting for this coaching staff. Obviously, it stings for the fan base. But you look forward into this 2026 class, and what they've got in Davian Groce. This is a guy that they have been in the front of for the recruitment of Davian Groce for quite some time now. They still seem like they're in the lead, but there's some question marks to be had there. So will Davian Groce be committing to Oklahoma? Well, I mean, just taking a look at where he is, he's uncommitted right now in the 2026 class, and he was expected to make his recruitment, I believe, last weekend, maybe the weekend before. And it seems like this has been drawn out. And this is where Oklahoma fans start to get a little nervous, because you're in the lead. You've had the lead for his commitment for quite some time now. And other teams keep on pressing, and other teams that have really beaten Oklahoma here as of recent too. And so that makes you quite nervous. And you look at the teams that are on the list for Davian Groce. He's a big time wide receiver that everyone wants. You've got Baylor, Florida, Houston, and obviously Oklahoma, still it's theirs for the taking. But that's where Oklahoma fans just aren't confident here. And you think of Davian Groce and what he brings to the table, and what Oklahoma would like to see when you look at the recruiting classes and building up. Emmett Jones has to pull this guy in as a wide receiver that can do it all. This is a priority target for Oklahoma right now, especially you think of what Emmett Jones and what Brent Venables are looking for in wide receivers. This is the type of guy, and I think Ben Arbuckle wants guys like Davian Groce on this team and on this, with this scheme and everything that he brings to the table. There's so much, and we'll get to that here in just a second. And with Groce, it really felt like there was a strong connection. After his official visit back in June, early June, it was June 6th weekend that he came to Oklahoma. It just really felt like he was at home. That was his official visit, and it just seems like Oklahoma made no mistakes. There was nothing there that was left off the table. It wasn't like they forgot to add something in there. It wasn't like they didn't press hard enough. It seemed like after that visit, there was no doubt Oklahoma was in the lead for his commitment. And then Baylor came in and really started pushing hard. And they're a strong contender still as of right now. It really feels like it's up in the air. It feels like it's 50-50 to where he could go. And Baylor was one of those teams that really pushed really hard very late in this commitment, or in this recruitment, and obviously making Oklahoma fans very nervous. They made significant progress in this recruitment with Groce and even his family. I think it was late June 20th weekend, whenever he had his official visit down there. And it really kind of pointed towards a strong possibility of him deciding soon to even flip his commitment, possibly. But even after that, I'm talking as of recent here in the last couple of weeks, it still seems like Oklahoma is in the lead from several sources. It just seems like Oklahoma has had Davian Groce locked down, but again, there is there is no way for Oklahoma fans just to feel totally confident in this. And of course, it's still up in the air. And of course, even Florida's appeal starts to creep in. And you think of Florida and what Billy Napier's had building down there. Florida remains in this race, no doubt. And that's something that should probably make. Maybe it shouldn't, but it will probably make Oklahoma fans pretty nervous when you think of Florida's appeal and how they remain in this race with Groce and his visit down to the swamp last month, and it really kind of makes things very much open. It kind of widens things up quite a bit. And with him taking his visit down to Florida, it's probably less likely that he would go to Florida. But you think of teams like Oklahoma and Baylor, kind of very similar to where he is from. I know being close to home means quite a bit to players. And that's where Houston even kind of comes into the race just a little bit. And you think of what Willie Fritz has down there in Houston, what he's trying to build up. Houston really ranks fourth, but it feels like it's right up there in the mix for tied for second when it comes down to this race for Davian right now. And it's one of those schools that Davian still likes, and it's probably a far stretch to say that Houston's really going to steal that commitment, but they're in there. They're in the race, and that's still something. Obviously, the more teams that seem like they're in the race makes it very nerve-wracking for Oklahoma fans, no doubt. So it's the tough decision, and anyone who's had to make any kind of tough decisions in their life should be able to empathize with this just a little bit. And if you've been around recruits that have had to make commitments, you really empathize with this because he's had a hard time. And like I said, he was supposed to have possibly made his decision by now. And it's the fact that Davian feels really torn. I read all over the place from several sources that he feels torn. He's having a hard time finding himself in one particular program to just come out here and make his commitment. And obviously, there's still all of this upcoming season where players can still flip their commitments. They could completely pull their commitment from one school and flip to another. And so that's something that it's probably a good thing for him individually. It's a good thing for him to take his time, make his decision on his own time, rather than trying to rush it and then having to flip that later on, because it's a hard thing to flip your commitment. It's not as hard to just make that commitment as it would be to flip it. You have to not just tell the new school, hey, I want to commit with you guys, but then you also have to go and tell the guys that you said you were going to commit to that you're not committing there anymore. So, there's a lot that goes into that. And so obviously this could be drug on for even longer than we anticipate, because like I said, we already expected Davian Groce to have made his commitment. And so again, this is where Oklahoma fans are starting to get nervous. Now, to dive into what you're getting out of Davian Groce, I think this is a wide receiver. It's an absolute must get. It's a guy that Oklahoma has to get in this class, a guy that they really want because of what he brings to the table. Again, like I said, you think of guys, I think when I see Davian Groce, if you were to take kind of a mixture of Hollywood Brown with CeeDee Lamb, that duo, I feel like you get a mixture of that duo in Davian Groce. And I'll explain that just a little bit, because he was a Texas 5A 200-meter champion with track speed. He's that guy that's got an impeccable speed, very fast. He's a long stride with a lot of buildup and just able to get over the top. And you think of those vertical stretch plays that you get with Hollywood Brown, even thinking of what you can get out of Jaden Gibson right now in that vertical game. That's what you get out of Davian Groce. He's a 6'1", 190-pound guy, I believe. And he's, with the ability to add weight up to 200 plus pounds. I mean, it's a big frame. It's a guy that has that ability to get up even bigger than what he is right now. Obviously, with the strength and conditioning that you get from Schmitty and this coaching staff, absolutely could be the case. And he shows a lot of flexibility. He shows that capability for sudden movements and sudden directional shifts and all that. And so I think this is a wide receiver that you get a lot of twitchy, able to really turn on the jets and run deep, but also able to make sudden shift, sudden directional changes. And I think that's really big. That's something that you want out of your wide receivers, and especially when they're able to also add that speed. You've got to now on the defensive side, you've got to look at this guy and recognize that he can beat you over the top. But you also have to watch out that you're not dropping too far back into coverage, that you let him up too close, and let him up and let him just stop on a dime and change directions, and now you're too far and you've caused too much separation there. So there's a lot that goes into Davian Groce. He's a dual threat as a wide receiver, put up a lot of yards both rushing, kind of as a running back, so he's got a little bit of running back capabilities. But he's also got that wide receiver experience and put up a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns as a wide receiver in high school as well. So he's a guy that shows you a lot of capability. You think of how he's focusing on playing wide receiver. He's got that true wide receiver flame. He's got all the catching mechanics down. He's got the route running, and I think even the ability to work on route running and even be better at route running than he is right now. I think there's a lot that this coaching staff could build up with him and really try to make him even better in that regard. So I think you think of that, but then again, going back to that running back, experience, he's exceptional with that run after catch. He's got a little bit of power behind him, and that second level vision that you get from that running back background. I think that's what makes him so special. And not only that, but you think of his top speed and his ability to run as a running back. You think of what you could do on a jet sweep, on any kind of screen plays. You've got all kinds of plays that you can design around a guy like Davian Groce. And so this is a guy that Oklahoma is pressing really hard, and they really want to get him committed to the University of Oklahoma. They want him to get committed now. They want to keep his commitment. This is a guy with his hybrid playmaking ability. That's somebody that you want to have on this team, especially when you look forward and what Oklahoma's trying to build into the future. This is absolutely a guy that you've got to have. It's a guy that Oklahoma wants on their roster, and they don't want to let him through the grasp. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you liked this video and want to see more like it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Please, it helps us out so much. We've also got memberships for those who want to get more exclusive content from Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football. Make sure to follow us on social media. All of those links are down in the description below. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Go check out more on the channel. We appreciate you so much. Boomer.